Welcome to Legislative Insight. I'm Margie O'Brien, and joining me today is House Speaker Nichalas Mattiello. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Margie. Pleasure to be here.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. How was your New Year?
It was wonderful.
Excellent.
Ready for a new year.
Ready to get to work?
I am.
We're very glad to have you.
Talking about getting to work. So we're in the House chamber, day before the session starts. Obviously very calm today. Give me a sense of what it will feel like tomorrow and weeks to come.
Well, tomorrow's the first day of a new session. It's the second year of a legislative session, so we're not going to have all the fanfare that we do for a brand new session when we have newly elected representatives. However, it's exciting. We start a new session. We're serving the people of the state. A lot of our members have been working with me throughout the off session. They have legislation they care about. We've been working on it. We've got road works that I'm sure we're going to talk about. There's a lot going on, so it starts a new session. There's a lot of electricity in the air. There's a lot of excitement, and I just love the process. I love serving the citizens, so it's great.
It's definitely something to look forward to. Let's talk about some of the priorities. Jobs and the economy.
Yes.
That's number one.
Absolutely. Since I've become Speaker, my mantra has been jobs in the economy, and I believe it's slowly paying off. We're being recognized nationally. We have a more stable tax policy, and just the emphasis on jobs in the economy and letting people know that we care about what's important to the economics of the state makes a big difference. So we're being recognized. Going to a small business forum at the end of this week, and from what I hear from the regional directors and so forth, that we're being recognized across the country as changing the way we do business. So we're going to continue to work on improving our economic climate and moving our state forward and serving the citizens. There's an excitement in the air, a hope in the air, and we'll keep moving forward.
And that's really important to change our reputation. So people are attracted to Rhode Island. Absolutely.
Rhode Island is such a wonderful state. We have a great coastline, great universities, great hospitals, great transportation system. On average, it needs to be worked on and improved, but it's a centralized system. So there's so much going for Rhode Island. I love the place, our citizens, the scenery. It's just great. So we want to promote it, and we want people to recognize what's actually here and to create better economics so that our children can actually be successful in the state. So,
sure.
You know, I'm looking forward to a great session, and I'm working forward to working with all the citizens and just moving Rhode Island forward in a positive direction.
Well, as you mentioned, one of the things I think everyone agrees on that does need improvement in our state is the roads, the infrastructure. So there was a plan last session that did not move anywhere. So it's sort of going back to the drawing board.
Yes.
At the beginning of the session. What do you foresee happening?
Well, I foresee the Senate took the plan up already, and we've been working with the governor's office, with the Senate. I foresee a toll plan on trucks only moving forward early in the session. We're still negotiating the particulars of that. What I see is moving forward with a similar but different plan, one that requires less borrowing, that has less cost, and hopefully a correspondingly smaller toll attached to it, so that it has a much more positive impact on our economy. And, you know, I'm looking forward. I know that no plan is perfect, but I'm looking forward to the day when we put a lot of people to work, when our infrastructure is one that Rhode Islanders are very proud of, and that we're not listed as last in the country for the structure of our bridges and our overpasses. So I think we can get there, and I think we can do it in such a way that all Rhode Islanders are very proud.
I mean, there is an argument to be made that it's only fair for these truckers, out-of-state truckers, to be coming up the East Coast. They're paying tolls in every other state, and they come to Rhode Island and they get a free ride.
Absolutely, and you know, I just went to North Conway for Christmas with the family, and you know, going up there I paid 3 tolls. Coming back I paid 3 tolls. I think my wife figured it was about $15. I don't recall if that's the exact number, but we paid 6 tolls going to North Conway and back. But the roads are great, and the roads are something that you could be proud of. So a toll proposal on trucks, just trucks that cause the damage, is good for Rhode Islanders because it spreads the cost for the repair for the damage to the folks that actually commit the damage, and some of those folks are out-of-state trucks. Any other proposal would have Rhode Islanders bear all the cost. this spreads the cost to out-of-staters that actually use our roads and bridges and cause some of the wear and tear. And it will only be on trucks only, not cars. And, you know, some folks say, well, eventually it'll go along to cars. We have to stop looking at things so negatively. You know, I know one thing. I know that roads and bridges are ranked worst in the country. That's not good. Infrastructure is one of the pillars of a robust community and society. So we have to shore that up, and we have to find a way to do it. If we do it and we're successful, no future speaker and no future governor and no future Senate president's ever going to have to look at tolling cars. If we pass the bad infrastructure off to a future generation and it continues to deteriorate as it always does, and then they're going to be faced with a bad situation, and you don't know what some future generation is going to be forced to do because we don't address it today. I'm not going to let that happen. We are going to address our infrastructure needs, and we're going to do so in an appropriate way. And I've indicated, as long as I'm speaker, no tolls on cars.
Now, how do you make the argument to the other reps that they have to look at the greater good here? So one of the things that everyone's waiting for is the gantry locations. Chances are someone's not going to be happy that the gantry's located in their area. But how do you have a better perspective for everyone for that?
Well, I think every representative, I mean, we represent our communities and we do so as diligently as possible, and that's very important. And we also come in with a state perspective. And, you know, I would not expect any individual representative to vote against their community. But we talk about what the gantries actually mean. And absent a lot of avoidance and diversion into communities by heavy trucks, there's not going to be a problem to the local communities. And I don't believe that there will be a lot of avoidance, and you could deal with that with weight limits on local streets and so forth. And trucks are not going to divert for a relatively small toll. It's more expensive to divert. I know there's a small group of people that are going to raise that issue, and that's something that we should debate, and we have to consider it. And I want a robust public debate regarding that, so that after we actually take the bill up, or when we actually take the bill up, we know what we're doing. It's very considered and well thought out, and we move forward with it, knowing what all the consequences are going to be. So I'm actually looking forward to the debate and getting all the facts out there, and then we'll take it up when we're ready to do so.
I know it's been a big talker for a month now.
It's been a big talker, and it's been a lot of work. I'm very proud of our fiscal staff and all of our members and my leadership team, and I've been working with everybody from all of our rank and file members to my leadership team to my fiscal staff, and it's just a great team overall, and I'm very proud of all my colleagues in the House. They've worked hard even in the off session, and we're all ready to get back to work, and it's an important issue that we have to take up. I know it's controversial. I know there's a loud minority voice, but it is a minority voice, and we're going to consider that minority voice. We'll take all the positive aspects of that and consider them as best we can, but we are going to move forward, because I'm looking forward to a day when we could all be proud of our infrastructure. And Rhode Island's not going to be last in anything as far as I can change that as we move forward when I'm speaker.
Now, something else that continues to plague the headlines is the number of overdoses in our state because of opioid addiction. And I'm hearing that there is a bill that will be considered early in the session, the Good Samaritan bill? Yeah,
the Good Samaritan bill, to give immunity to folks that actually call for assistance when someone's in distress. And we're looking to do it for simple possession type of offenses, but we want people to call for assistance. That's one that got tied up at the end of last session, unfortunately, and I certainly regret that. And we're looking to take that up as soon as possible. It's a big health issue for us, and we have a crisis going on with overdose deaths, and it's a scary situation, and it's something that we have to address. And a lot of folks working on it. There's a lot of important policy considerations, but one of the things that we can absolutely do right out of the gate is pass the Good Samaritan bill, and we intend to do so.
That's great. Good news. Looking ahead at some of the other pending bills, legalizing marijuana. Now, I know that you're considering the jobs and economy, but does that play a role, thinking outside the box, trying for a new business in Rhode Island?
Well, people suggest that if we're first, we'll have the infrastructure for the marijuana economy, and I believe there's a lot of truth to that, and it's accurate in a lot of ways. But there's a rush from some to legalize marijuana, and I'm not suggesting there are costs, but I suggest wherever there's a benefit, there's some cost associated with that. So we want to see and analyze what the costs are going to be before we move forward. And that's something that we'll be very thoughtful about. I've got a very open mind about it. And it's funny that today I just talked to someone who's very negative on the idea, one of my colleagues who was very negative on the idea. So I have both viewpoints in the chamber, and from my position as Speaker, I try to be pragmatic and I try to look at both sides, and I try to look at it as analytically as possible to make the best possible decision from my viewpoint in collaboration with my colleagues to serve the citizens of the state.
Well, every issue has two sides.
Absolutely.
If you were a betting man, what would you think about the full casino in Tiverton? Do you think it will go through?
Oh, I believe so. The town council has asked us overwhelmingly to put it on the ballot. I've indicated that I plan on doing that. Plan to vote to put it on the ballot very early. I think Rhode Islanders appreciate and respect that Twin River is a very good operator. They're a great partner for the state. It's part of our third largest revenue source, and there's competition from the north. So sure. We now have to act to protect that. I give Twin River a lot of credit for acting and moving as quickly as they did, and coming up with a great idea and working with the Tiverton community very, very closely. And they're just great operators, and every community that they go into appreciates how good and well managed they are. So I anticipate handling that issue in sometime in January, as early as we possibly can. It's an important issue for the state. As I've said, it's part of our third largest revenue source, and the House of Representatives is going to do what we have to do to protect that source. And I believe the Senate has indicated they're going to take it up also. So I expect that to move along very quickly.
So as much as we have to stay focused on what's happening right here in Rhode Island, you do have to look at the neighboring states and see what they're doing. You
do, and I've always said Rhode Island has to be competitive, and for too long we have not been competitive. You have to make sure your budget is as structurally balanced as it can be, and that you're competitive with tax policies, regulatory policies, and so forth with our neighboring states. If we're less competitive, people will migrate over to Massachusetts, and they'll benefit from a lack of competitiveness. So I don't want to be, I've often said, I don't want to be an outlier on any issue, and I want Rhode Island to be competitive, and that's what we're trying to achieve.
One of the other big items last year that did get left on the table, and may still be sort of on that table somewhere, was the discussion of the paw socks.
Yes.
Now, we want them to stay in Rhode Island.
I believe we do, and I've always said I believe the paw socks are part of our social fabric. We all love and appreciate them one way or another, whether you actually go to games or not. They're part of being a Rhode Islander. They've always been here. Well, they've been here for a very long time, and I think most of us appreciate them. They're a private enterprise, so with ballparks, AAA ballparks, professional ballparks, there's always a public-private partnership. There was a proposal that admittedly had a terrible rollout. We tried to recover from that, and myself, the governor's office, we were working very closely with the paw socks, and I believe we had a deal that was very positive for the citizens. We were working on it, and we never rolled it out because the land capital cost of acquisition became prohibitively high. So that threw a variable into the equation that we could not overcome. It had to be a positive deal, and once the cost became that high, you could not make it a positive deal. I believe ultimately, when their lease is up in a few years, the paw socks are going to leave their current location in McCoy and Pawtucket, and we'd like them to stay in Rhode Island. At least I've been working to achieve that. So I hope they find another location that's less costly, that will serve their needs and serve the needs of the citizens of the state, and that we could put together a public-private partnership proposal that the public will fully vet and be part of the discussion on, that best serves both sides. And I think we can accomplish that. So I hope they still want to stay in the state. I expect they probably do, but I have not had any discussion with them in a very long time.
I think that we all thought the idea of the ballpark right on the river was great, watching foul balls go over into the river. But even if it's somewhere else in Providence, it will not only help the capital city, but it will help the state.
Yeah, absolutely. Providence needs more activity. And the ballpark could be a catalyst. You bring a lot of people into the city for all of the games that they play. So you need that. And all of those folks, or some of those folks, would have gone to other venues, to restaurants and other shops, and spent money in our capital city, in the state of Rhode Island. So, we're trying to attract businesses, but businesses that have young workforces want a vibrant community to migrate to go to. And we lack a little of that. We need more things like the Paw Sox. And on the river, in the capital city, would have just been very exciting, and it would have added a lot of value to our capital city. So, I hope there is another location that serves their interest and serves the interest of the state, but that one would have been uniquely good, and it would have served everybody's interest very well. But we'll see if there's another location. If there's not, it just may not come together. But I certainly hope that the Paw Sox want to stay in Rhode Island still. Like I said, I believe they do. They I believe, love Rhode Island as much as most of us do, and they want to stay here if it's economically feasible.
Do you think part of your challenge for all of these issues is changing the way Rhode Islanders think? They have to start thinking positively towards every issue and not bashing things before it's even out there.
Well, I don't know that on average, Rhode Islanders are very positive people. I think sometimes you have a very loud, negative minority voice, and I'm not being critical of that. I think a minority negative voice is actually healthy, because you discuss both sides of an issue, and there's a lot of value in that. But Rhode Islanders do have to start looking at the glass as being half full. We are a wonderful state. As far as I'm concerned, we're the best state in the union. I have a second home in Narragansett, and in the summer, you don't see any other plates but out-of-state plates. Sure. Out-of-staters know how great we are, and they come to Rhode Island and they appreciate Rhode Island more so than we do sometimes. And we're a beautiful state. We have a lot of amenities that are wonderful. Our coastline, as I've said, our universities, our research capabilities, second to none. Science, technology. We have historic sites. We have modern sites. It's just a beautiful place, and I think that we all have to work together. And you go to other states, they're proud of their government, they're no better than us. They're just proud of their government. They're proud of their institutions. They're proud of their people. They're proud of their amenities, and they're proud of their attractions that are 25% as good as ours, and so we have all these great attractions, and we sometimes have to promote ourselves a little more and appreciate ourselves a little more, because we're great.
All right, a couple other big talkers for most likely this session. Charter school issues.
Yes.
Again, both sides. Some say they're the best thing since sliced bread. Others say they're draining from the public schools in that area. How do you make sure that maybe the school stays in place, but the people supporting the public schools feel better about this?
Well, I've always supported charter schools. I think charter schools are great. They can be great incubators. We get good ideas out of charter schools, and they do a good job educating our children. My concern with charter schools is they're growing more so than I think we should allow them to grow. Money follows the child. Money comes out of the traditional public schools, comes out of the local communities, and the local communities find themselves supporting two parallel competitive education systems. If you don't have enough money to fully fund the infrastructure and the variable resources, the teacher of one system, why would you engineer a second system that competes with that? And that's my only concern. 95% of our children are ultimately going to get educated in our traditional public schools. So until we get that right, it's hard to grow an alternate system beyond where it is. And I don't want to get rid of the alternate system. We have children in it, and we should not disrupt the educational opportunities of those children. But by the same token, we have to make sure that we take good care of the 95% that are in the traditional public schools, and make sure that every child in the state of Rhode Island gets the same opportunity for education, not 5%. And not all charters are as good as some of the others, but you don't give a great education to 5% at the cost to a compromised education for the other 95%. So I've always believed, since I've been in public service, that you have to make sure education is absolutely one of the pillars of a healthy society.
And that's really one of the building blocks to the bigger picture here. If we can educate our children, keep them in the state, there's going to be jobs for them later.
There'll be jobs for them later. We'll build a better economy, keep families together, and so forth. We'll have a better educated, better qualified workforce. We can get into more complex manufacturing and be more competitive as a state. So there's so much opportunity that comes through education. You know, my father didn't have a great education, but he thought, I think he had a 5th grade education, but he knew the value of it. And he was pretty successful in business, but that being the case, he knew the value of a good education, and he made sure that we worked hard and we studied hard. And I want every kid in the state, every child in the state of Rhode Island should have the same opportunity to a great education, whatever they want that to be, because we can't leave anybody behind, and you can't sacrifice 95% for the 5%. So we're looking at the formula, and as you're looking at the formula, you can't just throw money into creating structural problems in our education system that we may not be able to support in the future. So it's the answer is not just throwing money, it's organizing a system that is sustainable for the long term, and that's what I'm going to be working on.
And really looking at the whole picture. The PARCC test came out this year. The results weren't fantastic for Rhode Island, but again, I think there's a sort of wait and see attitude.
Yes, I mean we have a new education commissioner that I have a lot of confidence in. I believe everyone has a lot of confidence in. We have to now that we have a baseline, let everybody get their footing, let everybody work on moving forward and making sure we get those test scores up in the future. We put a lot of resources into education because we all value education, and we see the need to educate our children appropriately for our society in the future. And, you know, the Department of Education are the experts, so I'm going to take a step back and hope that we take politics out of the equation and let them do their job. And as long as everyone stays out of their way and we let the Department of Ed experts do their job, I think the commissioner and his staff will be able to get those test scores up.
And I think a lot of it comes back to being proud again. People want their children to go to Rhode Island schools, Rhode Island universities, and ultimately get a job here and stay, establish roots for the next generation.
Absolutely. And, you know, you have to be proud of the system that you're sending your kids to, though. And, you know, I visited some of our schools, and the buildings are deplorable. I wouldn't want to send my children there. And some of our kids go to these buildings. I was in classrooms that have mold on a wall, not a little bit. Enough mold that I suspect none of us would want to send our children there, and that can't be anymore. Mm-hmm. We have to make sure that our kids are sent to a safe, comfortable, hospitable environment that's conducive to learning. And you know, we provide for great teachers, and I know our teachers are out there working hard, and I've got a lot of confidence in them, and I thank all of them for their contribution to our children. But we have to provide a good, hospitable, welcoming environment, and some of our buildings need a lot of attention and quite frankly, need a lot of resources. And so you go back to the competitive system. We don't have enough resources for the structures, our buildings of our traditional public schools, and we're diverting money into another system. If the system that took care of 95% of our children was adequate and well-funded, you know, including the school buildings, then I would say, okay, now we can do a little more experimentation and grow the other system. But we're at a point that I think we have to be cautious, and we have to make sure we don't create greater structural problems in the future for our budget. That's one of the problems Rhode Island has. In the short term, we create structural problems that a future generation has to live with. And we're at that point with education, and I'm going to kind of put the brakes on it and take a look at it and say, you know, make sure we're making prudent decisions as we go forward. Throwing money at a system that is structurally unsustainable in the future is not the way to go, and that's not how we're going to go.
Okay. Another big conversation, and I think that you've already started chipping away at it about, is transparency in government. People want to know what's going on. And a lot of times in your conversation, you talk about working for the people. Do you think there's a sense that people are more informed, more aware and that is a good thing for Rhode Islanders?
I believe so. Since I became Speaker, I certainly try. I don't think I've ever said no to a reporter, and this week, this is the third show that I'm recording, plus being on the radio. So I do my part by trying to get out there and it's part of trying to inform the public. A lot of what we do, we're sent to the General Assembly, we study issues, and, the public should know that their representatives work very hard, put in a lot of hours to study the issues. It's our job to somehow inform the public, and, the public's interested in earning a living. They've got to get the kids off to school, they've got to take care of their pets, and, make sure the daycare is lined up, and make sure the kids' homework is done. So, we have lives that we're all living, and we're preoccupied. So it's our job to focus on getting our message out there, and I try to disseminate information whenever we can. We communicate through the media and individually with constituents as much as we can, and I think it's working. I think the public knows that we work on their behalf and that we're as transparent as possible. We televise more than we've ever done. We televise most of our committee hearings now, and we stream online, and there's more means of communication. So I think the public is more tuned in than ever before, and I think that's great, because I think that our society is stronger and healthier and better with the well-informed public. And when the public actually knows what we're doing and knows, how thoughtful we try to be,
sure.
That it's more of a partnership, and that they recognize the value in the things we do. So I think transparency is essential, and we'll continue to work as hard as we can to be transparent, to fully inform the public.
So today is a day to take a deep breath, get ready for tomorrow and the rest of the weeks to come. Do you think there is a renewed sense of let's get back to work?
Oh, I know there is. I know my colleagues are just itching to get back to work, and we all have business that we want to get done, and bills we want to get passed, and things we want to do for our communities. And the first day of session is a very hopeful day. It's a very exciting day. There's a lot of energy in the air. So I'm certainly looking forward to it. I know my colleagues are, because I've been speaking to just about every one of them, and everybody wants to get to work. We're here to serve, and we've got a lot of work to do, and we're gonna start tomorrow to get it done.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing this 2016 legislative session play out, and of course, people can turn to Capitol TV for the latest. As you said, most of the hearings are live. All the House activity is live on television, which is great. People can tune in while they're making dinner.
Absolutely, and we hope that they do, and we look forward to the dialogue, and we're very thankful to have you on our staff, Margie, and we look forward to your contribution. So thank you for what you're going to do for the citizens of the state of Rhode Island. All
right, Nichalas Mattiello, Speaker of the House, thanks so much for joining us, and have a great session.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, and you can always catch the latest here on Legislative Insight. I'm Margie O'Brien. Good night.